Here we go. It's been thundering and storming for days, so we're going on a little walk here while it's calm, knock on wood. He has just been through so much. You see his little summer cut on his underside. He's ready for summertime. They did a bikini wax. That's what they did for him. Yeah, we're piecing it together. He had a little bit of his normal meal last night. He had a little bit of breakfast this morning. We're trying to get this back to normal because he wasn't eating the other food yesterday, and I started to freak out. So anyway, so what I want to talk about today on this walk is I came across this YouTube video where this one Catholic priest was talking about how the 7 heads in Revelation were 7 empires, but then he goes from the 5th one being the Roman Empire to the 6th one being the British Empire, to the 7th one, which I didn't actually go that far into the video yet. But he fails to mention the Mongolian Empire, which is definitely something worth mentioning since it was the biggest and probably one of the most noteworthy empires in human history, and he doesn't mention it. So the theory does not fit. I responded because the subject of Revelation is something that I studied for many years. The best fit is that the beast with 7 heads, 10 horns, is the Catholic Empire. The Catholic Empire lasted about 1,260 years, which is a biblical number, 1,260 days, time of tribulation, etc. Catholic Empire actually lasted about that long. The horror on the empire wore red and purple, and Catholic cardinals wear red and bishops wear purple. It says that the whore was dressed with all kinds of fine pearls and gems, and it was wealthy, basically. The Catholic Church was known for being the wealthiest institution in history. It had like 2/3 of the world's wealth for a very long time. It was also drunk with the blood of the saints. The whore in Babylon is known for being drunk with the blood of the saints, and the Catholic Church killed more Christians in history than any other institution or power or anything like that. The Pope himself had the title, blasphemous title, Holy Father. That's what they called the Pope. And Jesus said, don't call anybody Father except your Father in heaven. And that no one is good, only God is good. So to call somebody Holy and Father was a blasphemous title. It said in Revelation that she basically was covered in blasphemous names and so on. The Pope hat is translated to mean Vicar of Christ, which means in place of Christ, and it totals to 666. Wouldn't you know that the Pope hat that they wore over that more than 1,000 years totaled 666 right on the hat. The 7 heads generally basically represent England, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, Poland, Hungary, basically. I think because it's a vision, it is symbolic, and it's not necessarily mathematical or specific. But she wrote atop it from Italy, and controlled the kings, controlled the culture and everything like that. Now the 8th one that comes along is not like the others, and that's the American Empire, created by the Illuminati that hate the Catholic Church. Just as it says later on, then the beast basically comes to hate the whore of Babylon and seeks to overthrow it and ruin it. Just as we saw how the Illuminati created America, has basically made Europe atheist and anti-Catholic. And so this last beast, this 8th beast, I believe is it's not so much just the American Empire, although that America has definitely been it's the major military force in the world. It just kind of represents kind of like the time. But anyway, no, there's and this is just the stuff I could just think of off the top of my head. There's a lot of reason to believe that the Catholic Church was actually the beast with 7 heads, and the whore of Babylon was specifically the church who ruled on top of the empire, the European Empire. So, yeah. I'm trying to think what else fits into this subject here, since I pretty much just summarized it. There's an easy one, yeah. Revelation 12, that's an easy one, where it's the child being born and the dragon comes to try to devour the child before it's born. That's the easiest part of Revelation to interpret. That was Jesus, obviously, who's going to rule with the iron scepter. And Satan, through Rome, was trying to destroy, or through Herod, I should say, was trying to destroy him before he was even born. And the woman represented basically spiritual Israel, not national Israel, spiritual Israel, like the God's people in the world. And it was from God's people in the world that Jesus was born from. And it doesn't mean Jewish genetics, it just means from God's people, which could be any genetic, any race. It was from within God's people that Jesus came from. Okay? And so that chapter of Revelation 12 is very easy. It's the easiest one to interpret. It's literally the freebie. So at least you can feel like you can interpret something, right? And the others get harder and harder. I'm trying to think about like Revelation 13, beast from the earth, beast from the sea. I'm trying to think about like some of those other later chapters. So an interesting idea or thought or theory is that the only power that's ever been known, like in religion and history, to call fire down from heaven is actually the Old Testament God. The Old Testament God incinerated by fire from heaven. And it's interesting because Revelation mentions that the beast, or you should say the God of these people, calls fire down from heaven and incinerates them. So that's interesting. So it's noteworthy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We could probably go faster, huh, bud? But I don't want to push you, since this is really kind of day 1 of recovery. Actually, it's like day 3. Yeah, day 3. What was I saying? Oh, fire down from heaven, Leviathan. Yeah, that's the only actual character in any kind of historical or religious reference that has called fire down from heaven is Leviathan. It's the God of the Old Testament. So that's interesting because it says in Revelation that it's the fear of fire from heaven that's going to. I know some people when it says, it's symbolic, it's talking about, fire is not actual fire. It's like spiritual or whatever. Oh, Toad, did you just see that squirrel zipping across the fence? I think he might have. Mm-hmm. See what else is there to talk about Revelation. The prophecies of Daniel describes. No, I don't really want to get into that. Daniel's prophecies were more for his time period. I'm just reminded of how all of the animals, though, of the kingdoms of Europe had head of a lion, feet of a bear, wings of an eagle, or like a griffin. Like all of the animals of the European countries all had like attributes of what's described in Revelation as how this beast had a mixture of things. I always thought that was weird when I was a kid. I thought they're describing an animal that has like a lion head, wings, a bear's feet, and I thought, oh, it's Europe. It's like all of the countries combined into one animal. Oh, So, but anyway, I don't know if I really want to go on continuing to. I think it's pretty plain, and this is gonna sound really funny, but one of the most convincing things to me was the colors. When it says she was dressed in red and purple, and the Catholic Church's cardinals were in red, and their bishops were in purple. And whenever you see their giant gathering, when they have like the Pope and all of the cardinals and all of the bishops, bishops, and it's like a sea of red and purple. And when you see that, you're like, man, it is right there in front of you. What are the coincidence that those two exact color combinations? It could have been red and orange. Could have been yellow and red. It could have been. those two combinations, and that the Catholic Church had those two colors. I mean, so it's little things like that. It's the, like I say, the Catholic Church having killed so many Christians, drunk with the blood of the saints. It's being dressed in. It was a very wealthy institution, just as the woman had all kinds of jewelry and fine, pearls and all that stuff. It's like all these little clues. I really think that's who it was. The Beast of Revelation was Catholic Europe, and that the Whore of Babylon was actually the Catholic Church. And the eighth one in the end is kind of our more modern American empire, secular world. So I think that's how it all was. It's easy now because we're 2,000 years later, so. But that's how it should be. The closer you get to the end, the easier it should be to know what it meant, So if you were to try to figure this out, I still think that people 500 years ago could have figured this out. They would have known enough about the Catholic Church to know, dude, that's what they would have said. Dude, I think the Catholic Church is the Whore of Babylon. You think? Because they're all getting murdered, and it says drunk with the blood of the saints, and literally, and that's the thing, drunk, it's interesting. Drunk implies madness, and that's really what the Catholic Church was like when it was just bloodthirsty, man. The Catholic Church burnt hundreds of thousands of people at the stake during the Dark Ages. Burnt them at the stake. I want you to, that's just a phrase. I want you to imagine it for a second. Kids. That's right. Families. We're not talking just grown men who just were going to start a revolution. No. Towns, families. Burnt them at the stake. They refused to submit to the Pope, just as it says in Revelation. They refused to worship the beast, and so they were basically put to death. The god of this church, basically, is the beast. It's Satan, the god of this world. Jesus spoke about him. Jesus literally, and this is why Paul was actually, I believe, played the part of the false prophet, because Jesus spoke about the god of this world and to submit to the authorities, because he said God put them there. But Jesus said that Satan is the god of this world, and he puts the authorities in their places, meaning Jesus recognized that the god of this world was Satan. Paul saw the god of this world as God. Paul was actually calling Satan God without, I don't think, realizing it. Anyway, it was from Paul's churches that the Catholic Church began. It was from Paul's teachings and his works that the Catholic Church. Paul was the first pope. So this is why I talk so much about Paul in some of my recordings, because it's so important, because it was literally the beginning and the foundation for the Catholic Empire, for the Beast with 7 heads, 10 horns. He basically painted an image of who he thought God was, and the Catholic Empire just ran with it, basically. To be fair, though, a lot of what the popes did and what the Catholic Empire did was still pretty far from even what Paul taught. So, I mean, they really did get drunk on madness and drunk on blood. I mean, they really did. So, well, bud, we're going to see if you're going to want to keep walking or if you want to head back. We'll see right at this turn up here. We're going to see what's going to happen here. It is pretty in there. We'll see if you want to go in there, okay? If you don't, that's okay too. You're 16 and a half years old and you have had a rough week. Buddy, you have had a rough week, I hear you. If you want to turn around, or did you want, I think he wants to turn around. Want to turn around? Yeah, I think he wants to turn around. Because normally when he wants to keep going, he'll pull towards the church. Come on, bud. Dobby. What are you doing? Okay. Where are we going? Where are you taking me? We're going to go in this way? See, it's his back right leg, bud. My poor guy. My poor guy. What I want to talk about now is, honestly, trying to interpret Revelation is actually pretty irrelevant, and some people might really disagree with me on that, but Toby, where are we going? Are we going to head back this way then? Alright, let's head back this way. Come on, think about it. Let's head back this way. since I don't think you want to keep going. Well, now you're motivated. You're like, yeah, breakfast is this way. Yeah. Or second breakfast, I should say. I don't think he knows about second breakfast. No, that's not the line. Something like that. What I was going to say is I really think, because I spent a number of years studying history and Book of Revelation, and I think that it's not that important. It's basically just kind of outlining that evil is going to be evil. You know, that the world's powers and authorities are going to basically always be evil as long as Jesus is not in charge. And don't be surprised when they do evil things to you, and heaven is waiting for those who have found forgiveness. You know, I think that's really the most important thing to focus on. I almost think it's actually kind of a mental illness to be obsessed on trying to interpret Scripture. And I think what it is it's like a person's desire to it's either two things. They either want fame because they want to be the guy who unlocked Revelation, or they want to know the future. And I guess the second one's not as bad as the first one, since the first one is just ego or something, or greed, or who knows what. But the second one, what good is that? Okay, so let's just say you know what's going to happen. All right? Are people being redeemed because of this? I mean, look, if somebody realize, well, I guess, okay, maybe it is helpful then. I just thought about that. Because you've got people, because I forget, people come to belief from all different directions, you know? And I forget that, you know, sometimes there's people out there that they think that the Bible has no credibility at all. They've never experienced any kind of a prophetic experience where, like, you know, they've had a dream and then it happens. And so for them, they just don't believe that any of this stuff's real. So, I mean, maybe being able to explain how Revelation is actually a 2,000-year telling of history for the last 2,000 years in Europe, maybe that would be beneficial to someone. I don't know, maybe. So, okay, maybe I shouldn't totally belittle it. I just feel like it's not teaching anybody about the repentance of sin. It's not teaching anybody about forgiveness. It's not teaching anybody about who Jesus was, what he taught. You know, it just seems like so kind of absent of the gospel, just so absent of Jesus' message. And that's why I think the obsession of trying to interpret it is like it should be a hobby. There you go. A hobby. You know. Not your full-time job, just something you do on the side for fun. You know. Where you going, bud? Are you trying to go get your posies muddy again? Is that what you're trying to do? Yeah, you're licking your chops. I think you're ready for second breakfast. That's what I think you're ready for. Uh-huh. Well, that's when I'm going to get you when we get in the house. If we make it there anytime soon. Mm-hmm. My poor old man here. He has been through so much these last 3 weeks. His poor old dog, I tell you. Him and me both, really. Not just him. But that's just a happy doggy with that nice pink tongue. And he's walking fine. Uh-huh. In human years, he's 105. That's right. And look at him. He's just out here on a walk with me. Like it's nothing. It's a pity that I wasn't able to record the last 3 years of these walks on a higher quality camera. All of my old recordings are like 640 by 480 and the audio is terrible. So sad. Ew, that water is brown. Ew. I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. I just realized something on another subject. I thought, see my little dog, she died from drinking that water in that pond out there. A week later, she was dead. It was a rare condition. Now, the other two, they drank from the pond too, and they lived. But she had a rare condition, and it killed her. And I told the guy who lives here, and he's a hard-headed, stiff-necked man. I'm telling you, that guy is so bad. Loves money more than anything, and he's just hard-headed. Anyway, I told him how my little dog drank water. I told him that there's something wrong with this land, and that water killed my dog. And I thought maybe, what, even though he doesn't like me and we don't talk, maybe he thought about what I said, because he's got cows out here, and maybe Faith's death wasn't in vain. Maybe he might save the lives of many cows because I told him about the danger of that water. And maybe some cows live because Faith passed. I don't know. I just like to think that her death meant something, that someone else, that was for some better purpose other than just random. It's always harder to accept a death when it feels just random and pointless, So I like to think that. I do. That there's little baby cows out here that are going to live because he took my advice about looking into that water or doing something. He probably won't. And the cows probably be fine. Just so sad. Poor little doggy, she just passed for no reason, because just 1 in a million. That's what they said the odds were. 1 in a million dogs have IMH, or can get IMHA or whatever. Or, I'm sorry, die from IMHA. That's right. 1 in a million. And they drew my number. And that poor little doggy of mine passed at 9 years old. And the other two were fine. I mean, it just... yeah. So anyway. Alright, back to what I was saying. Okay, Revelation, prophecy, all that stuff. I try and stay on subject here. What else is there to say? I was thinking, if you were in the year, like, say, 1500, 1400, and let's just say you did understand that it was the Catholic Church, because they had enough evidence. Now, most people didn't really have access to the Bible. See, that's the thing. The Catholic Church sat on it. They kept it secret. It's like they knew. All of you got to wonder how many of their higher-ups, as they were studying the Bible, looked around and thought, wait a minute, we wear purple and red. We have all the wealth. Oh my gosh, are we the baddies? I have a feeling that a number of that happened, and then those priests would just get offed, or relocated, or who knows what. They wouldn't be allowed to touch the scriptures anymore, because they had to know. In the 14, 15, and 1600s, they had to know. The clues were all there, And see, at that time, they could have used that as tools to instruct the people in the population to not listen to what this wicked Catholic institution was doing, to not listen to them, to not believe in their God, to not follow them. And so that is actually where Revelation would have been useful and helpful. I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably at that time, when you see your first family get burnt at the stake because they refuse to submit to the Pope, I think that's about the time you start to question, are we the baddies? Or are they, the Catholic Church, are they the baddies? So maybe it did go on more than I thought, and Revelation could have been there to maybe give hope and faith to those who live there that this is not who God is. God is being very badly represented by this church, and this is not who God is. So, I mean, it probably did serve a purpose, a great purpose, during those times. And so, I don't want you to think that I think that it is without a purpose. I just think that it's not the most important thing people in our time should focus on. And it's definitely not worth getting into heated arguments about it. Like, for heaven's sake, why would you that's a really bad reason to get in a heated argument, I think what it is how much do you really want to know the truth? How much do you really want to believe what you think is true? Because if you really do, then I have an open mind. Maybe it was the 7 Roman emperors. Maybe it was the 7 empires of, the Egyptians and the Babylonians and all that stuff. I keep that open mind, because it's trying to figure out what it means. That's the goal, not what you want it to be true. What does it mean? I think that's hard for a lot of people to do, that discipline.